Hi guys, so today I'm going to go over how much it costs to get into Field Target and how much you could end up spending in the long run. So obviously the first thing you're going to want is a gun, that's a given, and a scope, that's also a given. You need both of those to even sit here and pull the trigger. Now what I would do before we go out forking, say, £800 on a brand new gun, I would come down a club and I would speak to some of the guys and try out some of the rifles they got. Now, in Wales, most of the guys, they're really friendly and they'd be more than willing to give you a couple of shots of their gun just so you can get a feel for it. So, the main thing you want to consider is how big is it, how heavy is it, how accurate it is, how many shots you can get, and of course, the money. Now, the best brand, in my opinion, for not just starting out but all through shooting has got to be Air Arms. They do rifles that start at say £400 and go right up to ones that cost £1,300. I know it's a lot of money, but it's going to be worth it. So depending on how old you are, if you're around my age, so I'm 16, I'd recommend going for maybe an S410, maybe an S510, depending on how much money you're willing to spend. If you're probably maybe 14 or below, I'd say go for an S200 because they're generally smaller guns, a lot lighter, and they normally cost about £450, £500 brand new. You could probably pick a second-hand one up as well for, I don't know, maybe £350, depending on where you look and if you get a good deal. The next thing to consider would be your scope. Now, there's a rule in shooting where you always spend more money on your scope than the actual gun, because most guns these days, well, I say most of the well-branded, well-thought-of guns shoot roughly the same. They're all just as accurate as each other. But what really separates them is the scope. Now, the first scope I had was this Nico Sterling one, and it only went up to something like 15 mag, and I couldn't hit anything with it, and that was on a Springer. But the scope I got now, which I went over in one of my other videos, is the Nico Sterling Diamond, which, in my opinion, is one of the best scopes you can buy. Now, the only reason I'm saying that is because it's something you can rely on. It's something that's been proven over numerous competitions, world competitions, you name it, it's been shot there. There are brands such as March, Leopold that cost a lot more money, but you don't need those to be a top shooter. After all, it's a sport about you, not your equipment. As long as your equipment is good enough and you trust your equipment, then you can go really far in the sport. When I first started shooting Field Target, I had an S200 and that gun was really good, but I outgrew it really quickly because I had it when I was 14, just turning 15, and yeah, I outgrew it faster than I'd like. So my dad bought me an S510, which we've still got. They're a brilliant gun. I would recommend that gun to anyone. And now I bought off one of my friends the FTP 900, which is, for those of you who know you're shooting, it's an upgraded EV2. In my opinion, that gun is one of the best you can buy, if not the best. Now, I know some people who like their Steyrs and Walthers are going to be like, oh, but these are better. It's personal preference, but they're all as good as each other. So if you say maybe £1,500 to get started, say you buy a gun for £500 and then spend the rest of the money on a scope. Well, actually, you could probably say £800 for a gun, £800 for a scope, whichever way you want to divvy it up. But make sure you speak to the guys at your club before you go buying, really expensive kit. Now, once you get your gun, I can guarantee you, if you're anything like me, you're going to want to put stuff on it. So, a hamster, a buttock, whatever else, a wind indicator, which all cost a fair bit of money. Now, Rowan Engineering is regarded as probably one of the most reliable sort of attachments you can buy for air rifles. So on my gun, I have Rowan Engineering hamster, and the buttock I'm not too sure about. They normally come in, I think a Rowan Engineering hamster, that's not including a wood or anything to go at the bottom, is I think about £200 new. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's what they're going for. And buttocks, they can go anywhere from 50 to 250. It depends on where you get them and how much you want to be able to adjust them. Another thing you could buy would be a shooting jacket, okay, which you don't need, but it does really help. When you first put it on, you can't move in it, and when you get out of the box, you can actually stand it up against the wall and it will stay there. They're really stiff, but then obviously as you wear them, they loosen up and they become your best friend. Another thing you definitely need, 100% need, to start shooting field target is a bag to sit on. So you can get ones ranging in size. You can have a really small one to a really big one. Now, I've got kind of a big ass, so I have the bigger one, but it's whatever suits you. Some people like to be high off the ground, like me. Some people like to be almost on the floor. It's however you feel comfortable. Something that could help as well, it's not a necessity since most grounds provide them, but it's a kneeling roll which you put in between this part of your foot here when you come to do a kneeling shot, which falls into the disciplines. So most shots are off the bag, 32, then you've got 4 standing, 4 kneeling. You can spend as much money as you want on this sport, but what it comes down to and what matters on the day is you, how you feel and how you shoot. One of my friends, unfortunately he's passed, but he had a saying, it's not the gun, it's the squidgy bit behind it, and that's absolutely true. So if you're just starting out, then get a decent gun with a decent scope, you know, and sit there and practice and practice and practice and practice. And if your club has a course set out, go around it. Get as much experience as you can handling that gun before you go to a competition. Or if you're feeling lucky, just jump straight into a competition. However, I really wouldn't recommend it. Get used to the gun first. Yeah, I hope this has helped anyone who's getting into it and wants to know roughly how much they're going to spend. But just to recap, if you want a entry-level gun set up so you can shoot targets high, low, left or right, you're looking probably about £1,500. Just make sure you do your research before you buy. And yeah, I hope you enjoy your shooting. Goodbye.